5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good afternoon. I'm Jim Eskin. On behalf of Eskin Fundraising Training, it is my honor there's Diana Hoyt, welcome, who also will be leading a webinar in the summer. But to our 73rd episode, and it's the first one of this season, and I think it's on a very, very relevant and timely topic, and small stats, big results. And does anyone know tomorrow it's the first day of the 2022 baseball season? I'm a trivia freak, and if it's not worth knowing, I want to know it. Does anybody know what the first year of Major League Baseball was? Okay, 1869. I like to say that we're starting one day ahead. This is the beginning of our 2022 season. And our special guest, speaker, I'm going to introduce in about 3 minutes. We've really set kind of 4 themes for today. And number one, we like to emphasize, everybody in philanthropy does come out ahead. The donors, the solicitors, and the beneficiaries. And when you've been in this business as long as me, like Diana and Ben, who you're going to meet in a moment, will tell you, surprisingly enough, donors, I think, get more satisfaction out of participating in the philanthropic loop than anyone else. Today, our topic is that small nonprofits can and do compete with the larger organizations because they have a tremendous capacity to make the donors feel like heroes. We're going to emphasize you shouldn't think of a donor as a single transaction, but a lifetime association. And again, I'm going to introduce them and then the Ben Case. If there's something about fundraising that Ben Case doesn't know, I'd like to know what that is. I want to thank our learning community audience. Ben, we have every different perspective signed up. We have CEOs, we have executive directors, we have directors of development, we got board chairs, we have board members, volunteers, donors, and we think it adds to our learning community. It's a very diverse community. And we like to think, they all bring different qualities, but they all bring the Jeffersonian virtues of a knowing head and an honest heart. And that can get you a long way. And they answer the question. I want to thank all the people in the audience that either work for a nonprofit or they're like Howard or John. We don't pay them, but they work just as hard as a board member or as a volunteer, and they prove that one person can make a difference. And I think the key power they have is passion. They care very much about the work they do. At this point, I'd like to ask, first of all, I'd like to introduce our producer, Michael Largent with Game Day Media. Michael, could you explain if people have a question or comment? And this show is for you. I have a lot of questions ready for Ben Case, but we're flexible to take your questions and comments at any time. But at this time, Michael, could you explain how they can type things in the chat space? Better yet, come on camera with us.
Yeah, sure. So if you have any questions while you're listening, you can go ahead and type them into the chat below and I'll read them. Or when we stop for questions, you can go ahead and unmute your mic and turn on your camera and then ask the question to Jim and the speakers yourself. So those are your 2 options.
We'd rather have you on camera. We want to see how handsome you are. By the way, we would like you on this occasion to use the chat space. If you could type in your name, the name of your nonprofit, and your location. And I'm going to ask Michael to share who. I think we had something like 17 states signed up for today. So we want to know your name, we want to know your nonprofit, and we want to know where you're from. I know, Diana, you're from Phoenix, right? And Cathy and Howard are from San Antonio. John Feeney, you were from New Jersey. Is that right? It's now a pleasure to introduce Ben Case. As I said, if there's something about nonprofits that he doesn't know, I want to know what it is. He is one of the true masters in our profession. He is CEO and senior consultant of the firm Focused on Fundraising that he launched in the year 2001. He has provided 43 years of leadership to the sector. By the way, he's like me. We both started when we were 10 years old, and we ran lemonade stands. I don't know about you, Ben. I charged 10 cents for a cup and 3 for a quarter. And since then, he has raised $6 billion. For those of you who are a little older, you might remember there was a popular TV show in the 1970s called The $6 Million Man. And I think was starring Lee Majors. Well, Ben Case is the $6 billion man. So Ben, first of all, thank you for lending your expertise and leadership to the nonprofit sector and being a speaker for a second time in the series. How is the Case family doing?
Everybody's doing great, and everyone told me to tell you hello. Arthur's doing well, Angela's doing well, Natalie and all the grandchildren are all doing well. My son-in-law, everyone's having a great time. Thank you for asking.
Right, Ben. Okay, let's tell you, there are a lot of fundraising firms out there. Okay, what makes Focused on Fundraising different than other fundraising firms?
Well, I believe that what makes us different is the experience that you talked about. That really matters. 43 years doing this, helping nonprofits raise $6 billion. That matters. We've seen a lot. I think the customization that we bring to our work matters. We're a small firm, so we don't believe in, magic formulas and doing everything the way the nonprofit down the street does things. We really try to customize our work to the nonprofit that we're working with. The experience matters. We're very broad in what we do. We know a lot. So we do strategic planning and fundraising and major gift work. Our focus really is major gifts. And that matters, I think, in what we do. The center point of what we do is major gifts. So the planning we do and the communications we do all relates to that major gift activity. So I think those are the things, Jim, that probably really differentiate us from all the other firms. And it's what our clients most appreciate about what we do. And it's where we bring the greatest value to nonprofits is through that customization, through the high-end work that we do with them, highly impactful. And they really appreciate that.
You've written a book, 21 Tips. And can you tell us a little about the book? And I have another question. What do you think our board members and business leaders and community leaders who serve on our boards are fearless in just about everything they do in their lives, except asking for a gift for their favorite cause? Tell us a little about 21 Tips, and why do you feel nonprofit leaders are so scared of asking for gifts?
Yeah, the book, first of all, 21 Tips for Highly Successful Fundraisers is an Amazon International bestseller in 9 countries and 6 languages, if I recall correctly. It's basically short stories and lessons that I have from my career and that I've observed in other people. Jerry Panis, I know someone, Jim, that you and I both admire, endorsed it, which meant a lot to me. And you can go to Focused on Fundraising to order it, focusedonfundraising.com, FOCUSED, focusedonfundraising.com. And I'll send it to you free. All you need to do is pay for shipping and handling.
What a deal. Hey, what a deal.
Free, just for your listeners. Focused on Fundraising /resources. And the book is there. Order it. We'll get it right out to you as quickly as we can. So it's really been very well received. We're very grateful for that. I've got 2 or 3 more books that are written, but we can't get them finished. And that's always the issue. But thanks for asking. It's great. Now to your second question, if I may.
Yeah.
Why don't people ask for gifts? Because it's not just board people, it's CEOs, it's fundraisers. I work with, I coach and mentor a lot of fundraisers who really have difficulty asking. We call it askophobia. And it's, I think the biggest reason is that people have a wrong perception of asking for a gift. I think they think it's imposing. I think it's all these negative things, where in fact, without resources, our nonprofits go nowhere. Nothing happens. And I think when people have the wrong viewpoint, that's the biggest hangup they have. And once we get them over that incorrect viewpoint and get on to what happens because they ask for the gift, that facilitates it. So we train them to get over that, and then we train them on what to do and how to do asking correctly. And in fact, I have a tip this Friday, which is going to be coming out. People go to focusedonfundraising.com to sign up for our tips also. And we have a tip coming out this week. One of my readers on the tip list, Jim, asked the question, I'm getting ready to solicit the biggest gift we've ever solicited, and it'll be the largest gift this donor's ever made. What do I need to do? So I have a tip that we're writing for Friday that's going to answer that question. And I encourage everyone to sign up for our tips and to get in the groove of asking for those gifts in a way that's impactful and meaningful. And that's my answer to your second question, Jim. Wrong perception, and then they need to be trained on how to do it right.
Okay, like some of us, Ben, you've been in this game a long time, and the fundraising and nonprofit sector has had to make a lot of changes. Over the last year or two, what have we learned about the capabilities of virtual fundraising, and what have we learned about the limitations of virtual fundraising?
Well, I think the first thing that we've learned is that we can do it. I remember when this broke out in March, the first week it was present, March of 2020, we had this huge demand for webinars and instruction on how to do this. And we were one of the first out there, if not the first out there, on instruction how to do virtual. And the very first lesson that we taught, we said, folks, you got to approach this from the perspective of we can do this. This is something we can do. We have to do this because our nonprofits, our society depend on our success in doing this. So I think that's the first thing. Number one, we learned we can do it. Number two, I think, and Jim, I know you agree with this, that is that we have to be a little more deliberate, a little more thoughtful, and a little more interactive in the virtual world to make it work. And I think everyone kind of learned that. And that's good because I think it caused that interactiveness, that requirement for that requires us to listen better, to ask questions, to be more thoughtful in how the interaction is going to take place. So I think that we must be deliberate is kind of the second lesson that we all learned. And to be quite honest, Jim, I still believe, and I know all the fundraisers that I work with still believe that in-person is still better. We had to adapt, and I think we did so successfully. And the fundraisers I work with have slowly but surely been getting out. I'm now leading live in-person seminars that are going on. I'll mention a couple of those that are coming up later in our webinar here today. But people are seeing that we are human creatures who desire human contact in person. So as good as the virtual is, I mean, we can do it when we have to do it. As good as it is, I still believe in-person matters, and it's still the best way to go.
Ben, there's 1.5 million nonprofits in the country, and the challenge is for the donors, they're not choosing between the good and the bad, they're choosing between the good and the good. Before we start drilling in on the subject, how would you distinguish a small from the mid-size to a large nonprofit?
That's a good question. And I think most people kind of think of size of the budget, size of staff, things like that, from a small to mid-size to large. And let me give you a different way of thinking about it, if I may, and that is to think of nonprofits as being small, mid-size, or large based on the responsibilities of staff. And that is that a small nonprofit, every staff member has multi responsibilities. They got to do a lot of things. a mid-size nonprofit, the responsibilities are differentiated. You have specific responsibilities that you have that are differentiated. And a large nonprofit, I think the responsibilities are specialized. So the way that I look at small, mid-size, and large is by the responsibilities that the individual has. Do they have really broad multi-responsibilities? That means more than likely it's a small nonprofit. Do they have differentiated where they have a specific job, like being a major gift officer? That probably means they're mid-size. And then are they really large in that they have plan giving people and they've got other things within the other responsibilities within their organization? That to me says they are a large nonprofit. And that's what I see, and that's how I approach it.
And we see the data here that really the overwhelming vast majority are small. As we
Yes.
see here, 88%
Yep.
have budgets less than $500,000.
Yep.
Okay, small is beautiful. Do you think smaller and mid-sized nonprofits actually can enjoy some advantages over the larger nonprofits?
I know they do.
Talk about that for a moment.
Yeah, sure. It's one of the reasons, I've worked with at least a dozen startups and worked for one nonprofit that when I came on board, there was nobody there. It was me and the executive director. We had a very powerful board, which was really exciting. It was a lot of fun. The advantages that they have are clearly flexibility, nimbleness. They're not bureaucratic. They can really get stuff done fast in a hurry when they need to. The donors have a significant impact. A donor that's giving $1,000 to a really small nonprofit has a significant impact. $1,000, $10,000, $25,000, $50,000. These people are having significant impacts. You give that amount to Stanford or to University of Texas or Duke University or Harvard, and you're a gnat on the wall. I mean, you're just nothing.
Yeah.
So at these small nonprofits, small in scale, as I like to call them, donors can have significant impact, and I think that's really good. And then the other thing that's, I think, really great about small nonprofits is that we can get really granular on how we're changing lives and saving lives. We can really zoom in on that kind of impact that we're having, whereas the big nonprofits, man, it's just kind of, it's just numbers. And, Jerry Panis, I think it was, and there's some other people that talk about the Anne Frank story and how important it is to personalize and humanize our work and what it is we do. And I know Howard and some of your other listeners here will appreciate this, but it's when you tell that human story that you can really connect with donors. And that's the advantage that small nonprofits, small in scale nonprofits can have, is telling that human story in a really impactful way. That's what we have to do. And that's the advantage that a lot of small and scale nonprofits have.
Okay, we're going to try something new in our webinar series as a job board, and some of our nonprofit partners are going to announce some pretty exciting jobs. Did Hugh Farr make it into the, Michael, do you see with Big Brothers, Big Sisters? Hugh Farr, did he make his way in?
I'm here.
Hey, Hugh. Okay.
Hello.
Hugh is the Chief Development Officer for Big Brothers, Big Sisters of South Texas. By the way, that is the first organization that I trained their board. It was in 2009. I hope I'm doing it a little better, Hugh, than I'm doing it now. I'm going to do something I don't like to do too often, is go to stuck. You have 3 job openings, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
When can you talk about them? And you go to this address, and I think you had 1 in Kerrville and 2 in San Antonio. You have 3 openings. And if you go to this link here, you can apply for them. Can you tell us a little about the priorities for Big Brothers, Big Sisters at this time?
Yes, of course. And thank you for the opportunity to be with you and with your audience. Mr. Case, I'm eager to read your book, so thank you for sharing that with all of us. The opportunities are 3, as you pointed out, and they're essentially programmatic roles, part-time and full-time. They are in-person jobs. So I really appreciate what Mr. Case said earlier about the power of being in person. In our particular case, because of the service that we provide our community, and our secret sauce, if you will, being one-to-one, a child with an adult mentor-mentee relationship.
You know, Hugh, can you share? It was staggering. I've heard statistics on the success impact of the one-on-one mentoring. It's just amazing how much of an impact that has.
Agree. And that's something that we're very proud of and we hold very sacred to our hearts. And so the idea of fulfilling a job that we need does need to be in person because our work is in person. As you already know, Jim, we've been back in the office here in this office in San Antonio, Texas for everyone since June of 2020. And that was a bit brazen, perhaps, at that time, given we knew about the pandemic, but it was critical to be able to offer our service in that way to our clients and the community that we serve. So those jobs are currently available. Anyone interested would just click on that link on any one of them. Our HR department will be in touch with them and we'll schedule an interview there right after. So we're on the hunt for good talent.
Hugh, we appreciate the fine work that Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Bigs and Littles do for the community. Next, I'd like to call on a former colleague, Cathy Barrera. Cathy, are you there? By the way, I see you got a new title, so congratulations. She is the Executive Director of Development for the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities. That's a wonderful organization that does so many things to champion student success. Cathy, can you come on screen? I know you have several openings, and I think two, a capital campaign director and a development coordinator would be very appropriate for our audience. Could you talk, first of all, just a moment about the work of HACU, and then talk about the openings you have?
Yes, thank you, Jim. Thank you for allowing this opportunity. Like you, I'm eager to read Ben's book and look forward to having that opportunity. And thank you again for this opportunity. We do have a capital campaign director position that is currently posted. We are in the planning phases of our capital campaign. We're a 35-year-old organization, and this is our first capital campaign. So it's new for everyone here at the organization. And then we also have a development coordinator position, which is the key position in this office. They support all of the activities that we do, working with all of our partners. And our partners support the activities of HACU, which is a member association that represents, as you said, Hispanic serving institutions. We were founded on the campus of Our Lady of the Lake University in 1986 with 18 founding members, and we currently have 559 HSIs across the United States that HACU continues to support with career and leadership programming, internships, scholarships, and of course,
by the way, a
advocacy.
point for our audience, what's the threshold? You have to have 25% of your student population Hispanic. What qualifies you as a Hispanic serving institution?
Yes, by its simplest definition, it is 25% or greater Hispanic student enrollment. There are some other qualifications to actually receive the designation from the Department of Education, but in its simplest, that is the definition.
Okay, and if they go to this link, you can apply online. And as I said, is this your first capital campaign ever?
Yes, it is our
This
first.
sounds like a very exciting opportunity for one of our colleagues in the fundraising profession. We're excited about our upcoming schedule. Did Larry Raff make it in, by the way? He's going to be our next speaker talking about major donor. Larry, are you there?
I am here, Jim.
Come on. Hey, by the way, have you moved your offices from Newton to Boston?
I'm in my home office on the third floor loft of my house.
And where are you, by the way?
In West Roxbury, in Boston.
I used to visit Larry. I grew up where his office was located in Newton. So I have two questions. Can you take a moment to talk about what you plan to address during the webinar on major donor pipelines?
Well, like Ben, our firm focuses on major donor work and campaigns, and we've devised a rather elegantly simple and quick and quite valuable way to generate a major donor pipeline with a relationship map that helps to launch campaigns and major donor programs. And that's what we'll be talking about next on the
And my
20th.
second question, how far are the Celtics going to go in the playoffs?
Oh, well, you know how it is. They're not too healthy. I don't think they're going to go very far, I'm afraid.
Okay.
But the
well,
Sox
you know,
open
like it is.
tomorrow. The Sox open
Yeah.
tomorrow.
No, I think they got rained out or something. I think it's on Friday. I was just checking against the Yankees. By the way, Ben, you've been talking about your book. I sold 6 copies this last week. So now, according to my calculations, I'm just 240,000 copies behind you, but I'm catching up. And we want to give a little background. Philanthropy is amazingly resilient. We'll get the report on 2021, I think around June, but it was a record year, about almost $500 billion. And if you have enough batteries in your calculator, that's $1 million a minute that nonprofits are raising. And guess what's happening? Those are the people they're asking, okay? So, by the way, most of the money comes from individuals. We've been tracking this for 60 years, and the numbers have changed, but by and large, individuals have composed about 70%. Last year was 69%. So your major gift prospect list should have, don't get me wrong, I love money from corporations and foundations, but it should have a lot of individuals from it. Larry was talking about major gift. I think these numbers might even be more slanted. Of that 471 billion, 12% came from just, 88% came from just 12%. This is where it goes. Religion and faith has been leading the way for 60 years. And by the way, Ben or Larry, do any of you have Mackenzie Scott's cell phone number? Our audience might be interested in it. She is an amazing story. She's begun to renew her giving. It is over $12 billion. And the amazing part, it is unrestricted. And Ben and Larry and Diana will tell you, we've never seen unrestricted gifts that big. I have a lot of questions ready for Ben, but you all can jump in at any time. So I'm going to skip here. And then, by the way, I'd like to do one other thing. Can everybody type in? We have a mantra on this show, and that is we're nonprofit strong. So can everybody type that in your chat space, nonprofit strong? Then if you're ready, I think I have something like 67 questions. No, I don't have that many. I'd like to proceed, but if everybody could type in. By the way, Larry, what are we? We are nonprofit strong.
We're nonprofit strong and Boston strong.
That's right. And then what are we?
We're nonprofit strong.
Okay,
Everywhere.
let's get this. Okay, let's start with the questions. And I said in our learning community audience, you either can type it in the chat space or better yet, raise your hand and we'll bring you on screen. So if you want something clarified, you have a spin-off question, this is your show. Let me start with the real basics, Ben. How should a small nonprofit identify its best prospects?
Well, I think there's nothing different in how a small nonprofit identifies its best prospects compared to how a large nonprofit does it. You've got to start with your existing donor base. That's always a good place to start. People that are giving you gifts, and identify people within that group that have the capacity to give more. I am a big fan of referrals. I think you need to be always asking folks for referrals, although with your larger donors, you've got to be really careful about how you do it, because a lot of your larger donors are always getting asked that question, and they start to feel a little bit put upon if they think all you're doing is talking to them about their friends. And then you got to make sure, and as a matter of fact, Jim, I was talking to you earlier about the tip that we're writing for Friday.
Yeah.
We really want to make sure that we have a really good case that we're advancing, that we're talking with clarity and with in a motivational way to make sure that our donors are excited about making gifts to us. So we need to make sure that we are clear in who we are and what we're doing. We have that clarity. We understand our donor's passion, and we have that. And then we've got to make sure that we ask for the gift really well. All of that leads into being successful in identifying your prospects. Starts with your existing donors, ask for referrals, move from there.
Very good. Let's say one of these small nonprofits, the staff exists of an executive director and an assistant. And lo and behold, they get some budget dollars in. How would you suggest they think about adding a staff position?
Well, anytime, like I say, I do customized work. So anytime I have a general question like that, the first answer I have is always, it depends. It depends.
You sound like a lawyer.
It depends. Well, it depends on the individual nonprofit. And, you know, one thing I don't want to be is a lawyer, but no offense to anyone on here that is. But the fact is that it really does depend. It depends on the skill set for the executive director. Let's say the executive director is a real expert in whatever it is, the mission of the organization, education, policy, you know, whatever, healthcare, whatever the organization's doing, and is not really good around fundraising, not really effective at it, doesn't like it. They're doing it, but they don't like it. So like we said earlier, what gets done without resources? And there's not a whole lot that gets done without resources. So if the executive director doesn't like fundraising, when the executive director doesn't like it, doesn't want to do it as much, then obviously hiring somebody who can help on the resource side is going to be very valuable. Now, let's say you've got an executive director who's excellent at fundraising and really likes doing it, and
As they
you know,
should
they
be.
want to
As they
spend
should
50,
be.
yeah, they want to spend 50% of their time. Then what they probably need to do is hire someone who can pick up some of the programmatic management that the executive director has to do and put that responsibility over to someone else so the executive director can focus on revenue. And that's a great thing to be doing when you have that opportunity.
Yeah.
Then there's also the situation, Jim, just very quickly, there's also the situation where an organization wants to use that money to start a new program that they think represents a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
They should do that. And, you know, go ahead and step into that next opportunity if that's really appropriate for them. So the first answer, as I said, is it depends. And then from there, we need to look at all the criteria. Good question.
I'm not gonna accept it depends for the next question. But what advice do you have for a small nonprofit to get additional value from the role played by its board of directors?
No, it depends on that one. Okay. All right. All right. One of the things that I like to do, and I advise I'm a big believer in what I call the power of one.
Yeah.
Power of one. Okay. So when I want to get more bang out of my board of directors, what I advise nonprofits to do is to start with one. Start with your best board of director member who is most interested, most capable at the fundraising sphere. Okay, that's what I want to expand with my board of directors. I know there are other things that they can do, but in my universe, that's what I'm really wanting them to do. And I ask them and work with them on what I call a personal involvement plan, a PIP, a personal involvement plan, which basically is an opportunity to plan with that person what they are going to do to help our nonprofit over the coming year. Very specific amount of time. And we sit down, we talk, what are we going to do? How are you going to help us? And we go through all the possibilities, inviting some people to lunch, hosting events, attending events, having our materials distributed to other people, introducing me to people that you think would be great, the referral that we talked about. But I like to engage one person to start with and then move from there. And it's really important to have leadership support that. So if there's one thing that I want to do when I've got a small staff to get my board of directors involved in what's going on, I want to make sure my executive director is supportive of that, that my board chair is supportive of that. If I have a development committee chair, that person is supportive of this involvement. So I want to have leadership be a part of this. I want to work on my PIP, like I talked about. And I'll tell you what I'll do, Jim, just for your
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
If someone would like to see the PIP that I use, it's a sample kind of document. The PIP that I use with my clients, I would be happy to share it with them. They need to write me at Ben@Focused on Fundraising. It's FOCUSED, focusedonfundraising.com, Ben@focusedonfundraising.com, and I will send that to them. Okay.
Wow.
And all you got to do is write on their PIP, PIP, send me the PIP, and I'll make sure we get it to you. If you want to see, specific to your question, no, it depends in this one. I will send you what I use to help get board members involved in what we're doing.
Let's use another word that some of our nonprofit friends are going to cringe when they hear the word database. What's your advice for a small nonprofit to get its hands around a good database?
Ask somebody else. No, I'm just kidding. Database really is a specialty area. And Jim, you and I remember when databases were index cards that we kept in our office. We kept all that stuff on an index card. We made handwritten notes on all this stuff. I will give you my answer around what I think are the essential elements for databases. Number one, ease of interface. Okay. I'm a interface. I'm a computer for dummy guy. So the ease of the interface is really critical to me, and I'm going to look at that. Number two, it has to be able to accurately store data. No surprise there. Number three, it has to be able to allow for access of narrative, information, links, all of that stuff, and do so relatively easy. And then fourth, and this is where databases have really changed over the years, and that is they manage me. They use deadlines, they use names, they use dates, they use prioritization, they use all the data that we can put in them to manage me, to help me be more effective, a highly successful fundraiser, manager, and leader. And that's what I'm looking for now in databases, is something that can effectively help me be a highly successful fundraiser, manager, and leader. By providing me those kinds of deadlines and movements and suggestions. There's all kinds of artificial intelligence now that is moving into these databases that are really helping us be better at what it is we do. And that's what I'm looking at when I'm looking at databases.
Ben, let's flip it around a little. I hear my mother's voice. What so-called quick fixes should small nonprofits avoid?
There's a tip that one of my favorite tips ever, called The Magician versus the Farmer. And I forget who wrote it, but when we send it out, it attributes who wrote it. But it's just one of the, it really points out one of the great dangers in fundraising. That is that someone who basically promises the moon, and anytime you hear things that are unrealistic, they probably are unrealistic. And we need to really be listening for quick fixes that sound like this, the magician, as opposed to the farmer. And just think about it. I mean, who pulls the bunny out of the hat and tells you they're a magician and all this stuff, as opposed to the farmer that's working the field day in, day out, and around Thanksgiving time, they've got a bountiful harvest on the table. That's what we need to be pushing for and watching out for, is the magician. And too many board members and CEOs think they can hire a magician, and it just doesn't work out for them. I also encourage you to watch out for people that are selling their names, that are basically saying, hey, I'll give you access to this group of people. I see this a lot in political fundraising. It's part of the game in political fundraising, but it's not how we do stuff in
Pay to play
in the C3 world, right? So I'm really watching out for people that sell their names. I'm looking out for people that talk about give me a percentage of funds that we raise. I don't think that's really the way that we should be doing it. And I'm looking out for people that advance bad principles. One of my favorite bad principles is what I call fundraising by division. Gee, if we just had 1,000 people give us $100, we could raise all the money that we need. Well, that
sounds like Marxism. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, that doesn't work in fundraising. Never has, never will. You got to work a gift pyramid. So, and the same is true, Jim, in terms of consultants in
Yeah.
terms of webinars and presentations and seminars that we go to. There are people that teach bad principles. They are incorrect. And we need to be wary of those folks all the time. And it's just dangerous. So I really appreciate this question, kind of the quick fixes. There are a lot of people that think they're out there and they just aren't.
No, there isn't. There's something called working hard and working smart.
Yeah.
Hey, let me ask you, how do you think a small nonprofit should think about collaborating with another nonprofit? Not consolidating, but some form of informal collaboration.
I like it. There are some nonprofits that I work with that do collaboration like this. It's not easy. Both nonprofits have to be equally yoked, as we would say. They have to have an equal need for it and equal skin in the game for it to work. I've seen and I've worked with some nonprofits that are getting common services, such as I've actually seen where they're using database services and getting a better price because they're working together on the database that they have, and it's confidential. They're able to shield off different things in a good way, data information. I've seen them getting planned giving resources. I've seen them getting training resources and collaborating on efforts like that. So I like it. I think it's a good thing to do, but as I said, it's difficult because we have to be equally yoked. We've got to have equal need, equal opportunity, skin in the game, all of that. You may have some other perspectives on that, Jim, but that's my perspective on it. I think it's a good idea and a way to try to expand your capacity until you can afford it.
And I think donors love to see that collaboration.
Sure. Yeah, donors.
Hey, do we have, Michael, go ahead.
Donors kind of lead the way on this. They want us to be collaborating. It's harder to do than they think it is, but I think it's worth the effort, and I think it's worth evaluating to look at it.
I got plenty of more questions, but do we have, I don't want to call on one person in particular. Do we have anyone who would like to ask a question? And if not, Rachel Waterman, are you there? Rachel is the principal of Grant Easy Management Software. I think I saw her earlier. Rachel, can you come on screen? She's my grants expert. Rachel, are you there?
I'm here.
Can you think of, the only one I could think of, there'd be less approval levels. Can you think of any advantages that small nonprofits would have in submitting grants to private foundations?
Well, there's many foundations that prioritize small organizations. They have that as part of their mission. They're looking to support more community-based efforts or localized efforts. I think the most important thing is always doing your funder research appropriately, making sure that you're applying to the correct funders, making sure that your organizational size matches, always go to their 990 and check out who are they really giving to and how much are they giving to them. And where do I fit in? And, and be honest with yourself about who you are and where you position yourselves, because you can we only have 24 hours in the day, right? So you want to spend them on the activities that are most likely to bring you ROI.
Right. Hey, Ben, I know this fourth point is very important to you. Could you expand when you're talking about small nonprofits should pay a lot of attention to solid management practices? Dig a little deeper there.
Okay. That is really, in terms of my work with small nonprofits, Jim, this is where I dig in really deep and really strong, is around good management practices. I'm a believer that good management practices are important across the board, no matter where you are, but they're especially important for small nonprofits because their time is so valuable. The leadership's time, the people involved, it's so valuable. They can be doing so many different things, and they need to really be thinking about what are good management principles for their work. So to me, those good management principles, and I'm gonna hit some of these really quickly. I'm gonna walk through them for you, Jim.
Okay, thank you.
Those of people that are listening will know that they can pick these up on the recording if they need to come back to it. So number one, we got to have a strategic plan. We got to know where we're going, and it needs to be a good strategic plan. We need to have a fundraising plan that's based on that strategic plan. Nonprofits shouldn't have a fundraising plan that's out there disconnected to the strategic plan. It needs to have goals and priorities and donor lists and committed volunteers as a part of what we're doing. That needs to all be a part of our fundraising plan. And we teach this in the Daily Dozen, which is a 12-part webinar series. It's probably one of the richest webinar series that there is on the web about how to do great fundraising. We then move into telling your story and how to make sure that nonprofits are effectively telling who they are and what they're about in a way that connects to the donor. We need to make sure that we are, as managers, that we are identifying what is most important as a part of our fundraising plan. Here are our priorities. What do I have to be doing to achieve that? And we've got to be prioritizing those activities, that work. And then we need to make sure that we're very disciplined around what it is we say we're going to do and be accountable for that. The other day, I got a phone call connection from a friend that I haven't visited with for like 10 years. And we've been saying we're going to get together. And it just so happened I was driving through the town that he is the next day. And I scheduled time to go see him. And my wife comes in, who is president of our business. My wife runs the business. I'm just the consultant. She says to me, "Why are you going to see this guy? Where's that fit in your priorities?" Yeah. It really didn't. And that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about good management principles, is that we have to be willing to be accountable and to make sure that we're sticking to our game plan. Now, a few more things, if I may, around good management principles for nonprofits. First of all, we need to make sure that the CEO is the relationship builder in chief. You talk about this, Jim, and I think it's really, really true. We need to make sure the relationship builder in chief is the CEO. That should be the person. And they need to decide, in terms of our prospect pool, are they going to be the primary contact? Are they going to be involved? Or are they just going to be informed? So we need to have some understanding of their engagement with our prospect pool, with those people. And they must have, and this goes back to your question about why people don't ask, a CEO must have the proper perspective on fundraising. Is it opportunity versus obligation? Is it something like I have to do, or is this really an exciting opportunity that we're trying to advance?
Right.
A chore, or is it a joy? Is this dross? Is this a pain in the you know what? Or is this gold? And our CEOs need to be straight on that, and they've got to be the relationship builder in chief.
Right.
Then the next piece of all that is the board has to be appropriately engaged in what we're doing. They need to define their role as individuals, and then as the board. There are three levels of board engagement that we talk about. There's the operating board, the management board, and the policy board. And where we want to go over a period of time is a board that's more of a policy board, and then they're investing their time, talent, and treasure, their wealth, wisdom, their work, and their wallet, as Jerry Panis would say, into the nonprofit, and they're able to do that. I really like to involve board members around the identification of prospects and stewardship of prospects, helping me get in the door and doing those things. Some board members want to be involved in solicitation, and when they do, I'm going to ask them to do that. And it's really important for us to gather their allies and their network of believers so that we can work those folks. And then there's one other point, Jim, that I know is really important to you and important, I think, to all of us, and that is the best small in scale, successful nonprofits, small nonprofits successfully solicit both unrestricted and major gifts. They make the annual.
I love unrestricted. I love unrestricted money.
Well, they've got to do both. This is a true story, Jim.
I think the little guys need that unrestricted money more. You know, they have more unexpected crises.
But there's nothing that says the major gift can't be unrestricted. And in fact, that's the most valuable one. So
look at Mackenzie Scott's giving $12 billion. Hey, let me ask you, you brought up Angela, and I want to go to the audience to have any questions. But one of your clients, I was very impressed, was the New York Metropolitan and Museum. And have you ever gone down, you and Angela, the red carpet with the Kardashians? I said, I'm impressed by that client.
No, and you won't see me doing that. We've eaten many times in the Grand Tier restaurant and sat in the partier boxes and done the best that there is at the Metropolitan Opera. What a glorious place, glorious
Yeah.
mission, wonderful work, beautiful art. Ridden up and down the elevator with Placido Domingo and some other people whose names I could drop, but it's a wonderful place. It's a really wonderful place.
Yeah. Hey, Michael, do we have anyone in the audience? This is my quickie. I'm going to ask you, Ben, to amplify some points. But do we have any questions from the audience? We have about 10, 11 minutes left. Any questions from the audience?
Go ahead and go live. Turn your camera
Yeah.
and your mic
By the
on.
way, I was going to say some of the small nonprofits, they knew how to stretch nickels and dimes. I think they know how to stretch them into quarters. And another advantage, and I'd like you to amplify, sometimes it can be difficult for a big nonprofit to make a decision, and small nonprofits can be very nimble and respond swiftly, and the biggest overused word, pivot. And I think they're very determined. As Dave Root told us, they don't give up. And can you talk a little, I think it's in your tip books, everybody thinks that a fundraiser is going to be this persuasive golden jug talker, but the power of listening and how important that is.
Wow, that's one of my favorite topics, Jim. I teach many times. You were asking about how many times I made a presentation or led a webinar. One of the most popular courses that I lead is the Lost Art of Listening, and just how important it is for us to ask good questions, meaningful questions of our donors, and listen to what they have to say so that we can best guide them, help them achieve their philanthropic mission. There's a quote that I love, which talks about turning the dross of money into the gold of a better society. That's what we do as fundraisers. That's what we do. We turn money that can be anything, good, bad, evil, you name it, into the gold of a better society. Yeah. And it's really important for us to do that, to listen to our donors and to ask good questions. And again, it's one of the things that we teach in the Daily Dozen that is very valuable to people is the lost art of listening. We provide a lot of resources as a part of that. We give them 100 questions that they should be asking, which include my favorite passion questions that we should be asking our donors to make sure we understand their passions and connect them to what it is we do. And all of that comes through listening. And everyone on here has heard the old saying, you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth, use them proportionally. That is exactly what we need to be doing as fundraisers.
Thank you.
Too often,
Ben,
fundraisers are yakking, they're talking, they're doing too much.
Yeah. Ben, can you talk about small profits and stewardship?
Talk to me a little about what you're thinking about there. Anything in particular there?
I mean, I'm just saying, are there any opportunities or challenges when it comes to thanking the donors that are in the small nonprofit arena space?
Yeah, let me talk about the biggest mistake that I see there, and what I think we need to be doing. When we thank donors. Don't put an envelope in there. Don't invite people to a dinner to thank everybody.
Me, I think they call that a fast. Thank you and ask is a fast.
Yeah, and then at the end of the dinner, you ask everybody for a gift. And again, nonprofits can get nervous about this because their budgets are so tight, they're so slim. And, well, we really need that gift, and I've got to see the donor, and they just made a gift. Do I need to ask for a second one? Let me mention this, because this is one of the fundraisers that I coach and mentor, and I do a lot of coaching mentoring. You were talking about big brothers, big sisters, and the effectiveness of mentoring. We do a lot of one-on-one work to help fundraisers be highly successful fundraisers, managers, and leaders. And one of the things that I've been working with one of my fundraisers on that I'm coaching and mentoring is this fast ask. How can we do this in a way that is not offensive? And I'm going to share that with your listeners right now. That is to ask permission.
I love that.
First, express gratitude. We really
Yeah.
appreciate it. Make sure the donor hears the gratitude. They acknowledge, they hear the gratitude. If you've got to say it 10 times, if you've got to have it from the executive director in your organization, a board member, someone who's benefited from your services, make sure they hear the thank you, and then ask for permission. We are very grateful for your gift. It's made a huge impact. Here's what we've been able to do with this. Here's what's going on in our world today. The nonprofit that I'm talking about is actually involved with Ukrainian refugees. Okay, you can hear and understand why it is important to ask that donor for another gift. There's stuff going on that nobody planned for in their budget. So we've got to make sure the donor understands that and then ask permission. You've been very generous. You've been very helpful. Here's what's going on. May I ask you to consider another gift? Can we have a conversation about that and see what they say? If they say, yeah, I'm happy to do that, then you're going to be ready to walk into that. If they say, wow, gee, you know, I just made the gift, I don't think it's time quite yet. Okay, we're going to honor and respect that. So what we're working on is we got to place the reason. And with the Ukrainian situation, the refugees and everything going on there, they have a huge reason to be able to do this. And then we ask permission to ask for the gift. And we have had 100% donors that are happy in what we're doing with them.
You made a reference to before. And by the way, is there anyone with a question? We only have a few minutes left. Anybody have a question? If not, while you were thinking of your question, you know, Ben, you were talking about lifetime value. Could you explain the difference between a singular philanthropic transaction and donor lifetime value?
You know, and nonprofits that are highly successful, especially leadership, understand the lifetime value of a donor, and they focus on that. So when we acquire a donor, we're not doing it in a transactional way. We are doing it in a thoughtful way that says this donor has this kind of value to us. We need to build a relationship with them, and that's the way we go. And again, this is what we teach and we encourage people to do. By the way, Jim, I want to mention before we get off here that we do a 45-minute free strategy session. So if any of your listeners want to contact me and get a free 45-minute strategy session to listen to what they do and make suggestions on what they can do to improve their fundraising, we will do that with them. They can also get the tips for free, the books for free. We've talked about that. All they got to do is pay for shipping and handling. They go to focusedonfundraising.com to get that. And then I do want to mention all of the stuff that we've been talking about, Jim. We are teaching at sessions that we have coming up where people can still register. The Institute for Charitable Giving is having their seminar in Cincinnati, October 10 through 12. I'll be teaching at that for 3 days. You can come to that. I'm also teaching in October that same week for the annual National Conference of Growing Community Foundations. That's October 13 through 14. People can still sign up for that. And then I'm also working on an invitation-only seminar, which I am teaching for 3 days. I personally am teaching the whole thing for 3 days, September 22 through 24. And if people are interested in that, they can reach me at ben@focusedonfundraising.com. We're not trying to be exclusive. We have some criteria for this, and I need to talk with anyone because it's invitation only. So I'm the teacher, I'm not the host. But if anyone's interested in that, they could contact me at ben@focusedonfundraising.com, FOCUSED, and we're happy to talk with them about that.
Okay, Ben. And we just have a few minutes. You were going to say not every board member is going to like to ask for a gift. This is a best practice, is to get your board members simply to make thank you calls to your donors. I mean, there's been research on the impact, how that will lift up next year's gift.
Yep, 100%. It is the best and easiest way to involve our board members. They like it. They leave a message, they talk to people on the phone, they say thank you, they talk about the impact of the gift. It's the third party endorsement that a staff member or an executive director can't do. Board members are really great at stewardship, and it's easy for them, and we need to staff them to be able to successfully do that. They can leave a message, write a handwritten thank you note to the person. And you're exactly right, Jim. The impact on philanthropy that happens because a board member said thank you is dramatic. It's something that we all need to be doing to increase our fundraising.
Well, Ben, I was afraid of this, but the time has just flown by. One of my favorite quotes to end on is from Maya Angelou, who said, "People will not remember what you said. People won't even remember what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel." And our job as a nonprofit is to make our donors feel like the most important people in the world to us. And I have another money buck guarantee, okay? My guarantee is the more you ask, the more you get. Ben, the time has just flown by. I want to thank you again. 43 years, we both started at age 10, and for all the wisdom and insights you have shared with fundraisers in the nonprofit sector. And I'm glad I'm not as busy as you. You sound like you have a million projects, but you have had enormous impact on the sector. So we thank you for joining. You know what happens when you do a good job, Ben? We're going to ask you back, okay?
Jim, I love working with you. All you got to do is ask. I'm going to be happy
Wait,
to
wait,
try to
hey,
help.
hey, all you got to do is ask. That sounds familiar. Okay,
sounds
and
like a
Michael,
good
this is
motto.
what we're going to do. We are going to post a very short summary of this discussion, both on LinkedIn and Facebook. And then Michael Argent does a special spin dry, and we are going to post the recording. What do you say, Michael? Usually in about an hour?
Yeah, usually it just depends on how fast the Zoom video processes.
And our next one, we're going to skip a week, and you got to see Larry Rapp, who wasn't too optimistic about the Celtics, but I know he's going to lead a great seminar on major donor pipelines. So Larry, we look forward to seeing you 2 weeks from now on April 20th. Ben, once again, thank you so much for what you've done for the sector. And we're going to put a little summary on LinkedIn and Facebook, and then we're going to post a replay of this discussion on LinkedIn and Facebook. Everybody who signed up, we're going to send you the replay. So Ben, all the best to the Case family.
Great. Thank you, Jim. All the best to yours.
Okay, and we'll see you soon. And thank you to our learning community of volunteer and professional nonprofit leaders. All you do is touch, improve, and save more lives. We are so grateful for the great work you all do. And we'll see you on April 20th. Good night.
Good night.